Nico Dwyer here for the 10th inning, and before we get into today's video, today is June 6th, and this is the anniversary of D-Day, when the United States, when the Canadian, when the British troops stormed France's beaches. I just want to give a quick thank you to everyone who fought to help secure the freedom that we have currently in America. I know right now we're going through some tough times. There have been things that have been a long time coming that are finally looking like they're going to get fixed. But we can all thank the people who gave us the freedom on this type of day, on D-Day, to remember this. There were about 156,000 soldiers that stormed the beaches that day. So again, before I get into the video, I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone who has served in our armed forces to protect this country. What's up, everybody? Nico Dwyer back with you for the 10th inning, giving you another edition of This Day in Sports History. In yesterday's episode, we saw the greatest clay tennis player of all time, Rafael Nadal, get his first French Open championship in 2005. We have a lot more French Opens to get into, as well as some other things. But before we get into that, if you all enjoy what you see, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel and you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get into it. This Day in Sports History. Today we start out at the 1901 British Open, and James Braid wins the first of 5 Open championships by 3 strokes ahead of runner-up Harry Vardon. Now we move up to another golf tournament in 1924 at the US Open. Cyril Walker, who was a relatively unknown player at the time, wins his only major title. He would do this by defeating defending champion Bobby Jones, who came in second place by 3 strokes. A year later in 1925, we had the French Championships. On the men's side, René Lacoste wins the first of 3 French Championships by defeating Jean Barotra 7-5, 6-1, 6-4. This would be the first of Lacoste's 7 major titles in his career. Then on the women's side, Suzanne Lenglen defeated Kitty McCain 6-1, 6-2 for her first French championship victory and her 6th of 8 major titles. We stick with the French championships in 1932, and Henri Cochet wins his 7th and final Grand Slam singles title by defeating Giorgio De Stefani 6-0, 6-4, 4-6, 6-3. Then on the women's side, Helen Wills Moody defeated Simone Matthew 7-5, 6-1. This would be Moody's 14th major championship of 19 overall and her 4th and final French championship. Back to golf in 1936 at the US Open, Tony Manero, another relatively unknown golfer, wins with a score of 6 under ahead of Harry Cooper by 2 strokes for his only major title of his career. Now we move up and we are at June 6th, 1944. Yes, D-Day. In honor of D-Day and the 156,000 troops from Canada, US, and Britain that were deployed on the beaches, all Major League Baseball games were canceled on this day. Now we move up to the 1971 French Open. Defending champion Jan Codes defeated Ilie Nastase 8-6, 6-2, 2-6, 7-5. This would be Codes' second French Open victory and the second of 3 major victories on the singles side. 5 years later in 1976, we have the 30th NBA championship, which pitted the Boston Celtics against the Phoenix Suns. The Celtics defeated the Suns 4-2, and in Game 6 they won 87-80. JoJo White was series MVP for the Celtics, averaged 21.7 points per game. Dave Cowens of the Celtics also averaged 20.5 points with 16.3 rebounds per game. And you can't forget John Havlicek. He also averaged 15.5 points per game. This was too much for Alvin Adams and Paul Westphal for the Suns, who led the scoring with 23 points per game and 20.8 points per game. Now we move to 1981, back to the French Open. On the women's side, Hanna Mandlikova defeated Sylvia Hanika 6-2, 6-4 for her only French title and 2 of 4 major victories on the singles side. A year later, in 1982, we stick with the French Open. Now on the men's side, Mats Wilander defeated Guillermo Villa 1-6, 7-6, 6-0, 6-4 for his first French Open title of 3 and his first major of 7. 4 years later, we have a world record that was made. Jürgen Schultz set the world distance record, which is still held today at 74.08 meters. That's about 3 meters ahead of anyone who's even come close to his record today. Now we go right back to the French Open in 1987, and Steffi Graf defeated Martina Navratilova 6-4, 4-6, 8-6. This would be Graf's first Grand Slam victory in her amazing career, in which she won 22 total victories, and her first French Open title. 5 years later in Major League Baseball, 1992, Eddie Murray passed Mickey Mantle for the most RBIs by a switch hitter all time. He drove in 2 runs in the Mets' victory 15-1 over the Pirates. This would give him 1,510 RBIs at the time. He would end up with 1,917, good for 11th all time. At the 1992 French Open on the women's side, Monica Seles retains her title, defeating Steffi Graf 6-2, 3-6, 10-8. A year later at the French Open on the men's side in 1993, Sergi Bruguera defeated Jim Courier 6-4, 2-6, 6-2, 6-3 for the first of back-to-back French Open titles and 2 major titles. Off of the awards now, right back to the French Open in 1998, Arantxa Sanchez Vicario defeated Monica Seles 7-6, 0-6, 6-2 for her 4th and final career Grand Slam singles title. This would be Seles' 3rd French title victory. Then we move back to the NBA in 1999. The San Antonio Spurs defeated the Portland Trail Blazers in the Western Conference Finals 4-0 for the sweep. David Robinson, Tim Duncan, and Sean Elliott for the Spurs all averaged over 15 points, and that was too much for the Trail Blazers led by Rasheed Wallace and Damon Stoudemire. The same year at the US Open Golf on the women's side, Julie Incher broke the scoring record with a 16-under to win by 5 strokes ahead of runner-up Sherry Turner. This would be the 5th of 7 major championships for Incher. Also in 1999, at the French Open on the men's side, Andre Agassi wins his first and only French title, defeating Andre Medvedev 1-6, 2-6, 6-4, 6-3, 6-4 in 5 sets. This would be the 4th of 8 major titles for Agassi. Now we move into this century in 2004 at the French Open on the men's side. Gaston Gaudio defeated Guillermo Coria 0-6, 3-6, 6-4, 6-1, 8-6 in 5 sets. This would be his first French title victory and the only major in his career. A year later in the NBA, 2005, the Detroit Pistons were going up against the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Pistons won Game 7 88-82 for a 4-3 series victory. Richard Hamilton, Chauncey Billups, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace all averaged over 15 points, with Ben Wallace doing the dirty work on the defensive side for the Pistons. For the Heat, Dwayne Wade and Shaquille O'Neal both averaged over 20 points, but it just wasn't enough. That Pistons team was too good. They would get over the hump the next year, though. We move up 2 years to 2007. First, we start with the Stanley Cup Finals, which saw the Anaheim Ducks defeating the Ottawa Senators for a 4-1, defeating the Ottawa Senators in a 4-1 series victory. In Game 5, they won 6-2. This would be the Ducks' first championship in their franchise history. In Game 5, the Ducks would win 6-2, and this would be the first championship in the Ducks' franchise history. In Game 5, the Ducks scored 2 goals in the first period, then they scored 2 more in the second, while the Senators scored 2, so 4-2 after 2 periods. They would add 2 more goals in the third period, winning via blowout in Game 5, getting their first Stanley Cup. Also in 2007 in Major League Baseball, Trevor Hoffman, one of the greatest closers of all time, becomes the first relief pitcher with 500 saves in a 5-2 victory over the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now we go right back to the French Open in 2009. On the women's side, Svetlana Kuznetsova defeats Dinara Safina, the world number 1 at the time, 6-4, 6-2. This would be the first French title and the second major title of 2 majors for Kuznetsova. A year later, we stick with the French Open. On the men's side, Rafael Nadal wins his 5th French title, defeating Robin Soderling 6-4, 6-2, 6-4 in straight sets. This would be the first of a 5 year stretch of dominance at the French Open for Nadal, winning from 2010 to 2014. This would also be the 7th of 19 overall major victories for Nadal. 2 years later in the NBA in the Western Conference Finals, the Oklahoma City Thunder defeated the San Antonio Spurs 4-2. Kevin Durant averaged 29.5 points in that series, while James Harden and Russell Westbrook both averaged over 15 points. And for the Spurs, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan all averaged over 15 points. They won the first 2 games, but they lost the next 4. Kevin Durant just went crazy in that series. In 2015, back to the French Open on the women's side. Serena Williams wins her 3rd French title and 20th Grand Slam of 23 single titles. Williams defeated Lucy Savarova 6-3, 6-7, 6-2 for her title. Then across the pond at the UEFA Champions League final, Barcelona defeated Juventus 3-1 for their 5th title and their 2nd treble. Ivan Rakitic scored in the 4th minute for Barcelona, but Alvaro Morata scored in the 55th minute to tie things up 1-1. Luis Suarez gave Barcelona the lead once again in the 68th minute, and then Neymar capped things off in injury time in the 90 plus 7th minute to give Barcelona the 3-1 victory for their 5th title. Finally in 2015, at the 147th running of the Belmont Stakes, American Pharoah wins the Triple Crown in 2 minutes, 26.65 seconds. Pharoah would become the 12th of 13 horses to win the Triple Crown and the first horse in 37 years to do the honors. Then we move to Major League Baseball in 2017 when we see those Cincinnati Reds, Scooter Gennett, go 5 for 5 with 10 RBIs, 4 home runs, and a 13-1 victory over the Cardinals. Hitting 4 home runs in a game is actually rarer to do in baseball than throwing a perfect game. There have only been 17 players to do so in Major League Baseball. There have been 23 perfect games. So what Scooter Gennett did was just amazing. Add on to that, 1 more hit, and 10 RBIs. It's a great day. Then finally in 2018, LeBron James of the Cleveland Cavaliers surpassed Michael Jordan's record for the most 30-point games in NBA playoff history in the Cavs' 110-102 loss to the Golden State Warriors. James did everything he could in that game for the Cavs with a triple-double along with 33 points. But Kevin Durant, his 43 points proved to be too much as the Warriors would win that game and go up 3-0. So there you have it. That's what happened on this day in sports history. Sorry if I mispronounced any names. If I left anything out, let me know down in the comment section. Everybody stay safe out there, and I'll see you tomorrow for Nick O'Dwyer and the 10th inning. See ya.